Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Board of Registration and Elections special called meeting today, Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 3:30 p.m. My name is Kathleen Ruth, and I'm the Vice Chair, and I am joined today by my colleagues to the right, Mr. Aaron Johnson, and to my left, Ms. Terry Crawford. With that, we constitute a quorum. And this meeting is called to order, and so our first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, and this agenda is approved. Our second item of the agenda is voter residency challenge, and I think we have Mr. Hubert here. Thank you. Do we have the voter sheets?
The name? Oh, we don't have it. Okay.
Okay, so we'll give Mr. Hubert a chance to talk about the challenges, and then at that point, we'll hear from Ms. Marshall, our registration manager.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm David Hubert. Glad to be here. I filed some challenges in May, and I'm here to answer any
Mr.
questions.
Hubert, can you make sure your button is green, your speaker, so that we can hear?
There you go.
Okay, so I just need to, okay. That's better, I guess. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on these challenges that I've submitted.
Okay, so it seems, I think we need Shamir to give us some clarity on what has happened as far as these challenges. I understand that there were about 30 challenges, correct, that were submitted?
Okay, so good afternoon. Mr. David Hubert did submit a list of 35 electors that he wanted to challenge. 8 of those electors are already in council status, so they will be removed from the challenge. But we notified Mr. Hubert yesterday, this morning, that being that the hearing was pushed off and rescheduled for today, according to the code, we have to notify the challenge electors within 3 days of the scheduled hearing to give them enough time to respond. So the normal and appropriate correspondence was sent out for the meeting that was scheduled earlier this week, but there was not enough time to turn the letters around for the hearing today, and it did not meet the 3-day qualification. So we reached out to Mr. Hubert after speaking with legal and notify him that the challenges will have to be heard at a later date. Mr. Hubert also stated that he's okay with us hearing the challenges, I don't know if he still is, at the regular scheduled July meeting. If not, we will have to schedule another special call meeting. That's the alternative, because we did not give the electors enough time to respond.
Okay. So this is a question for legal. We had this meeting scheduled on Tuesday, correct? And wasn't there sufficient a 3-day notice that was given in order to have that hearing on Tuesday, or?
If the only thing that they would have had to do was mail something back or call or email, that might be sufficient. But they're supposed to be given notice of the date and time of the actual hearing, so that if they want to come down here, they can come down here and make an appearance.
Okay.
In order to satisfy the statutory requirement of the Georgia Code and of the National Voter Registration Act, we have to give them proper notice. So it would not be proper notice to notice them sometime in the past, and then just when it gets rescheduled, just say, well, we sent a notice previously. So it would not be sufficient.
Okay, so there needs to be sufficient notice, and so with that said, Mr. Hubert, are you okay with moving this with the other challenges that you plan to submit, so that we can hear those at the July meeting?
I have a question.
Okay.
Does Ms. Marshall know has she worked the challenges so that we'll know the result of those challenges?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, that would just help me to know. It'd be fine with me if I know the status of those challenges. I'm in preparation of other challenges, and the result of these will inform me on those. So if that would help me, if you can tell me that, I got no problem with it being at the next meeting.
So I would like to ask everyone, so the normal challenge process, we usually hear the hearing, we hold the hearing, and then we do the registrar findings at the hearing. But if you guys would like for me to send him the information prior to the hearing, then I can, but
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
All right, I'm confused. Because I will tell you, I don't understand why we're here today if we can't do the meeting. Because we've been scrambling around for the last couple of days trying to find a time period to have the meeting. Now, I understand that we were originally scheduled for Tuesday, but then it was rescheduled for today. But even at the moment of rescheduling, if what Mr. Lohman's saying is correct, we knew then that we didn't have enough time to change it from Tuesday to Thursday, correct?
that is correct.
So if we knew that, why did we schedule it for today in the first place?
It was
That's an excellent
rescheduled.
question.
It was rescheduled because we did not have a quorum for Tuesday.
I understand that. But Tuesday it was scheduled.
Yes.
For whatever reason, we did not have a quorum for Tuesday. We had to reschedule it.
Yes.
But knowing we have to reschedule it, we know we have to give them 3 days notice.
Yes.
That only gave us 2 days notice, so we didn't even satisfy the statutory requirement to have the next meeting. So at the earliest, we couldn't have it before tomorrow. I'm guessing, because, you got the tie, I don't. I'm just trying to make sure. But we're here today for a meeting that's not really a meeting.
So
Let me
the,
interject. The meeting today, the hearing part was canceled, but we had to have a meeting today to approve the South Fulton IGA. That's also on the agenda.
Okay.
but specifically for the challenge, the election code states that we have to provide a response in 10 days. And today is the 10-day window.
Is the response requirement for us to meet to give a response, or is the response requirement for the department to respond to the person, to the, Mr. Hubert?
I don't believe we have to offer a response as far as making a decision. The response is to, I believe, Mr. Huber. The notice requirement is so that the challenged electors can either notify us that they have moved and canceled their registration, that they intend to show up at the hearing and provide evidence or whatever. So the way that this happened was as soon as the meeting was rescheduled and I got the information, I asked, have we notified the voters? And I was told at that time, no. So then my question was, are we still having the meeting? And that was when I was informed that there was other business that needed to take place here today. And so that's why, that's my understanding why this meeting is held, and I understand your frustration. But I just believe that to satisfy the statutory requirement, we need to do it properly.
So this will be my suggestion, then hopefully this will work out. First, I think we need to figure out exactly what we need to do in this 10-day window. Because it could be me, but I'm hearing conflicting information as to exactly what we need to do. Because quite frankly, everybody running around trying to get down here for a meeting and rearranging schedules and moving things that we were already anticipating on doing today and having to go through traffic and all of that. If it was all about signing the contract for South Fulton, just tell us, let us know, so we'll know. And we could have had, we still could have had the meeting on Tuesday, possibly, I don't know. But to have us plan for Tuesday, turn around and change it, put it at 1 o'clock, move it to 3:30, Then we get here and we can't even do what in our minds we think we're
Set.
coming to do. Because the only thing I thought about we were coming to do today was this challenge. And I'm sure they would not have come down here today just to see us sign a contract for South Fulton. Correct?
That's
I thought
correct.
so. So what I think we need to do is clarify exactly what the statutory requirements are as it relates to these challenges. I do wish, and this is for both sides, if I don't know how to coordinate, if the names that they're submitting are already on the list, why are we still going over them? Because they're about to get removed anyway. I wish there was a way that we could get our citizens who are reviewing these lists to, instead of start with the challenge, start with the question. And the question would be, how many of these names are already coming off? And then that would save everybody, I think, I don't know. It would save a lot of time because we wouldn't have to go through these names, but it's I understand it's a duty on our part, but it's just a hassle all the time to get these requests that anybody in the world, anybody in the county can just make I want to get these people off the list. If the true goal is to get a clean election list, if it's the true goal is to get a clean registration and elections list, I would think that not just our staff, but the people who are submitting the challenges would be more amenable to working with each other to clean the list up. And the focus should be cleaning the list and not just getting people off, because that's two totally different things. So I'm sorry if I sound a little frustrated today, but it's just a big circle that I don't quite understand. So I hope we can figure out the best way to make this happen from moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think those were excellent points raised. We all have very busy schedules and trying to get here. And Mr. Hubert, if you had known that we were not going to hear your challenge today, you wouldn't have had to come down here. And so there needs to be better coordination. And I will say in the past, there was better coordination. We were having these meetings in conjunction with our regularly scheduled board meetings, which is more convenient for everyone because we have a quorum and we have all of the necessary participants, parties present. Ms. Marshall.
Thank you, Dr. Rue. So I would like to say, as far as following the code book and communication, I do agree with you guys. But we have communicated to Mr. Hubert prior to today that his challenge would not be heard today. And we also sent him the code section. I sent it to him this morning, just the code section, because he had a question of why the challenge wouldn't be heard today. But we reached out to him and let him know that, you know, we did not provide enough notice to the challenge electors that we would not be able to hear the challenge today. Originally, Mr. Hubert approached me at the last regular scheduled board meeting and said he wanted to postpone until the July meeting because he wanted to be with Jason Frazier. I said, Mr. Hubert, if you would, please put your request in writing so that they won't think, no one thinks that we're just trying to ask him, hey, wait, so the board doesn't have to come down. He then said that he wanted to proceed. So that's why it was scheduled for this Tuesday. But as soon as it was rescheduled and we found out, because Mr. Hubert was in the building on Tuesday because he did not get my voicemails, and he showed up, we told him then that there was not enough notice. So.
But it's still an agenda item on the agenda, and we were not informed as.
Well,
board
my
members.
apology. I would like to say, because as the chief registrar, the challenge process is a part of my duty, so I would like to apologize for any inconvenience that everyone was caused today. But I did notify Mr. Hubert. I would like to also, as Mr. Johnson stated, if we could just put something in place so the as far as the challenge process, the entire process should take no more than 10 days. So if we come up with something today, that'll be good for the public that's listening and anyone wants to challenge. But I do like what he said in regards to if someone is already canceled, I would like for the challengers to know that if someone is in cancel status, then technically you cannot challenge them because they're already canceled. What the challengers have requested is they be deleted out of the state registrar database, and that's not an option. So in ENET, the only thing we can do is cancel people. We cannot take people out of the system.
And in canceling them, that means put them at, and they will move to an inactive status.
No, ma'am. Inactive is, hey, I need to make contact with you, or you have not
Okay.
made contact with our office. Cancel means you are not registered to vote.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for that clarification.
You're
I
welcome.
wanted that for the public.
Thank you.
And Ms. Marshall, I just wanted to make clarification. Of the 35 that were submitted, how many were already in canceled status?
8, Mr. Loman.
So 27 will still need to be researched?
Reviewed,
Okay.
and they already have been, but just as the chief registrar and abiding by the law in the book, the code, I did have prepare a recommendation for those 27, but we didn't give them enough time, so that's not the way that we should do things.
So could we hear your recommendation, but know that these electors have a certain amount of time, have the statute to provide whatever documentation, as well as we have to give them an opportunity also to come down, is that right, physically appear?
I don't think it would behoove us to hear a recommendation without having all the information. If the
Okay.
review process is still ongoing and the opportunity may still be had by those individuals, then I don't think it would behoove us to hear a recommendation not based on all of the evidence.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loman. So, given that, it is, we will hear the challenge in July. Is that the plan? Mr.
To ask Mr.
go
Herbert,
ahead.
when would he like for his challenge to be heard?
Do you have anything before I ask him?
No, you pretty much covered
Okay.
what I was going to say.
Mr. Herbert,
Yes.
the purpose of your challenges, and I know you don't have to tell me this, and you can, you can.
I'm glad to talk.
So are you trying to help make sure that the voter file is cleaned up? Because there's a lot of overlap in what sometimes people are asking for. And I don't know, maybe you don't realize that there's a lot of overlap, but I'm trying to determine, because what we're trying to do, and I'm going to tell you our ultimate goal, is to try to find a process that works for everybody. A
Yes.
process that works so when we receive challenges, staff has the proper time to be able to do what they need to do. We have the ability to hear your challenges, but it's not working out that way right now. So what we're trying to do is find that good, happy ground, but it all depends on what the purpose is.
Okay. Well, let me say this. I did get the notice that the challenge wouldn't be heard today. But what they said in the notice is that the challenge would be disallowed. What I did not want to happen was a disallowing of the challenge. A postponing was fine. So reason I came here was to make sure that these didn't get canceled. I mean, I could always withdraw them, and that would accomplish something as well. But to your question that you're asking, we get the voter list. The voter list shows us who's registered to vote. It doesn't show us these subcategories of canceled or whatever they are. We have a voter list that appears to us to be an active voter list. Those are the only ones we're interested in. And then we have information that they have moved, in this case, to another state. So we have no way of knowing, and I've had this before, Ms. Marshall, in some of my other challenges, she'll say, well, these are already canceled. Well, I had no way of knowing that. So we're spending the time to research it, we're spending the time to send it to her, and they're already canceled. I don't know what we can do about that. But for us,
Well,
it's
I have a suggestion
it's a
to that.
collaborative effort with you to accomplish the goal of removing people from the roles that shouldn't be there. That's all.
Okay.
It's
So
no competition or any of that. So If we had a list that showed us who was canceled, then we wouldn't, but we don't.
So my question to you then would be, you said you have a list of voters, and
Yes.
it doesn't tell you what status they're in.
Yes.
Where do you get them from?
Secretary-
Because
Secretary of State.
now, from my understanding, that the list that he should be receiving would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know, I'm just from what I think. If they're already in a cancellation status, that list should have it on there.
Yes, sir. So the alpha voter list that comes from the Secretary of State's office, it is the list of every registered voter in Fulton County. Or we could word it better to say everyone that's in the state registrar's database. There is a column of registration status on every voter list. And if you do a filter on that alpha voter report, all you have to do is filter out the cancel. Because there's no reason to cancel someone, because if you submit the challenge, everyone will be moved into the cancel status, meaning they're no longer registered. So if you submit names that are already canceled, then we remove them from the challenge.
I
And
can
that's
say,
on-
I can say from our end, we will look to see what we can do about our list showing the cancel, because there's no purpose for us to be canceling voters, challenging voters that are already canceled. Makes no sense.
I agree.
So
This whole process
we'll
is
work
amazing.
to see if we
May I
can-
offer you one suggestion? Get your list, and I'm not making you do this, and this is not legal or anything like this, and I may get in trouble for even suggesting this. But why not take the list that you receive, bring it to the staff before even submitting a challenge and being able to understand what you're looking at? And then
100%.
that way, once staff is able to say, look, just to let you know, whatever you do after that is on you, but at least you have the knowledge of knowing that on this list, X amount of people are already canceled, or these people are in this status, or at least they can show you maybe how to expand it. I don't know what it looks like because I've never seen it, but give them an opportunity to help you look at the list so you can see exactly what you're submitting before you submit it. Now, if you submit it the same after that, that's on you, but I'm just, because we got to find some way to make this work.
What you're suggesting is easy. We get a spreadsheet, so let's just take this list of 35. They're on a spreadsheet, and I start working them. It's easy for me to send Ms. Marshall the spreadsheet and say, are any of these on here already canceled?
But what she's saying is the spreadsheet that you're saying that you received from the Secretary of State's office should already have their status on there.
And we will work and see
And
if
you're
we
saying
can
they don't.
I'm telling you, our list does not show status, the list I get. But
Where
I
do you
will
get them
see if
from?
we can't
You
improve
said you
that
get them
list.
from the Secretary of State. Do
Right.
you submit for them or they just come to you?
There's other people that work on sending the list out, so I get a list.
So there's a group that goes to the Secretary of State's office and gets some list and they send it to some people, and then once you receive it, you go through
I'll
it and you
start to
submit
work.
Oh.
But
So
it's
there's
easy
a
for
there's
me
a
to go back
two-step
to the-
process that happens before the list actually gets to our office.
But it's easy to me to go back, if the voter list from the Secretary of State shows the cancel status, we will pull those out. I don't think it's no problem. And then I can send to Ms. Marshall the list that we believe is a clean list, because we don't want to work those that have already been canceled.
So you've never gotten a list directly from, and I'm sorry if I'm taking over the meeting, but now it makes a whole lot of sense to me.
I get a clean-
You don't take the list directly from the Secretary of State's office.
Right, because it's 800,000 voters or whatever it is.
Well, if you go to the Secretary of State's office and you tell them you only want Fulton County, they will only give you
I'm just
Fulton
telling
County.
We get the Fulton County list, but I'm getting.
But you're not getting it from the
which is a
Secretary of State's
sub-
office.
Yes, but it's a sub-list by the time it comes to me.
Oh.
It's been cut.
Okay.
So that different people, so I will look to see if the list that we get from Secretary of State shows cancel status, we will filter it for those that are already canceled.
One last thing, Mr. I would discontinue saying you get the list from the Secretary of State's office. You can say the list comes, but you're getting it from somewhere else. So that gives us the impression that you went to the state capitol, you got a list, and you came and you started working the list. But what you're saying now is somebody else went to the state capitol, they got the list to you.
I
And by
can.
the time you got the list, it may or may not have been exactly what was taken from the Secretary of State's office.
Well,
So, okay.
Yeah, but I think in the past, I will say that it seemed like Mr. Hubert and Ms. Marshall have worked collaboratively and haven't had any problems before.
sure.
This issue, though, is a good remedy, Mr. Johnson, as far as within your group, making sure that the list that is received from the SOS removes those electors that are already in cancel status, therefore sending a more comprehensive list to Ms. Marshall that she can work on.
100%.
So, Ms. Crawford has a comment, question.
Yeah, if I can clarify, I think that maybe to correct what you said, instead of saying his list from the SOS, the group list to him. Because
he's not
his
getting it
list
from
is
the
not coming from the SOS, it's coming from a group. So if you could educate your group leaders on what it is they need to do
Sure,
to get
sure.
a cleaner
Yeah,
list,
absolutely.
that would be helpful.
Absolutely. And we'll do that, and I think it'll eliminate this particular cancellation issue for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Hubert.
Ms. Marshall?
So just so that my staff and I are prepared, because we have a lot of priority assignments that we're currently working on, and the election is Tuesday, and everyone has a busy schedule. Would Mr. Hubert like for his challenges to be heard before the July or at the regular scheduled July?
Yeah.
I'm fine with July, but I would like to know from the list who's not going to be recommended to be canceled. That's all I want to know, so
Well,
I can see what the criteria is
So
that's,
you need to know the 8 people that she said are already listed for cancellation.
well,
No,
yeah, I'm
the
sure she'll give me
27.
those. But
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the others.
27.
Those
Yeah.
that already canceled, we can take them off, but I'm interested, are there deficiencies in any of my other submissions?
We can't.
So what I will speak on, because Mr. Loman just stated that we
Right.
cannot provide the recommendations today, what I would like to say is, if it states that proof, the burden of proof shall fall on the challenger, a good burden of proof would be when you go to the Secretary of State's website for other states, and you see that they're registered in that state, those are sufficient, those are good.
course, yes.
But,
None of these are registered in another state.
yeah,
None
so
of
with
these.
the titles and the deeds and stuff, I don't think that those are sufficient documents to prove that someone is registered to vote in another state, which constitutes the entire, I think I'm saying it right, Mr. Loman, the entire challenge process. So just because someone sells their home does not mean that they're registered to vote somewhere else. So
All right.
there were only actually, and I'm not going to give names, but 3 people out of the 27 that I was going to recommend removal for today, but the other 24 I was not.
Okay, well, can I speak?
Yes.
This is helpful to me. So none of these are registered in another state. So the basis of the challenge is they've moved to another state. All right, we have the NCOA that says they've moved to another state. When they file a deed in Fulton County, it shows where their new address is. That new address, and they fill out a form called PT, which is a property transfer form, shows the new address of the seller. That's an official government form filed in the clerk's office with their deed. It shows also the new address that conforms with the NCOA. So, to me, that's that plus, I'm assuming they won't show up, that's 3 pieces of information that this person, I'm not challenging them for having registered in another state, I'm challenging them from having moved from this state and no longer eligible to vote in the state
So
because they're not
I
residents.
think we're now moving into hearing a challenge. And so I will recommend that, Mr. Hubert, that we make a decision now that we will hear these challenges along with the other challenges you said that you will be presenting for July. And I'm making an executive kind of decision that maybe we hear these at the next board meeting and not at another time in between, given the election that we have coming up next week. And I know that our department will be busy making sure that that election runs smoothly and all of the details involved there. Mr. Hubert, are you okay with that?
Well, I suspect I don't have a choice here in this case, but I'm still on the horns of a dilemma. I have what I believe are objective evidence that these voters have moved to another state.
So, and you will have an opportunity.
Let me finish, because what I'm about is, if I wait till July, then I can't do any more, because it's a waste of time of me to work on 100 more, 200 more, when this criteria is going to be turned down by the board. So if I will send in what I believe to be an objective, serious criteria, and have Ms. Marshall respond to me that this is good enough or not good enough, and why. Now, she may not want to respond that way. I don't know. If we got to go to the next board meeting, then that's what we'll have to do. But it stops me. What I was trying to do is be able to move on with other challenges. That was my purpose of hearing what was going to happen to these. But she's really told me enough to already know that what I believe is a good challenge, she thinks is not a good challenge. So we'll just have to address that at the board meeting.
Ms. Crawford had her hand up.
Yeah, can I, just in reference to the National Voting Rights Act, an alleged challenge of addresses, including the NCOA or property records alone, is not an adequate basis for a lawful challenge. A voter must affirm in writing that they have moved or must fail to respond to notice sent by the state for 2 federal election cycles.
All right, well, let me respond to that if I may. I not only have that they've sold their property in Fulton County, they voluntarily told us on their sale record that they're moving to the same address on the NCOA. In most cases, I have the tax records from the county that shows they've declared homestead exemption in that county, and often that they're owner-occupied properties. So it's not just...
I understand that, but according to the National Voter Rights Act, they have to affirm in writing that
I don't
they
believe
have.
that to be true.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Lohman, what I'm saying correct?
You have correctly laid out the criteria of the
Okay.
NVRA.
Okay, thank you. Just so you're aware.
But one last thing.
Mr. Johnson?
Military, when they move, they can still maintain, I'm just asking because, I don't know. But if I were in the military and I was living in Georgia and I decided to sell my house and they transferred me to South Carolina, and I go to South Carolina and I start staying in South Carolina, but I want to maintain my voter registration in Georgia because I know I'm coming back after my tour in South Carolina. And everything he just said would still show up because I've sold my property. And now I probably have my mail going to my home in South Carolina. Does that guarantee that now I can't vote in Georgia if I'm on this list?
No.
So all I'm saying
There
is something.
there are exceptions like military.
That's all I'm saying. There are
100%.
exceptions. Okay.
But we're asking the voter with our challenge to tell us that they are in the military. And so if we get no answer, then they've not told us they're in the military, and they can be removed. Now, if they tell us then they're military, we would withdraw our challenge instantly.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Lohman, did you want to comment on the law or about that? Okay. Okay, thank you.
We have to address the voter challenge on the agenda.
Yeah, well, we're addressing it.
No, I mean, we haven't, we really haven't,
We're not hearing the voter,
right, and so we need to make a motion.
okay.
Do we have to make a
Do we
motion
have
for
to
that?
make a motion because it was canceled?
At the July meeting?
It's been canceled. I guess we should have had a motion to revise the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to revise our agenda and remove voter residency challenge.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded, so we will remove the voter residency challenge from the agenda. So I think, Mr. Hubert, we have a plan going forward as far as working with your group to remove cancellations prior to submitting the list to Ms. Marshall. And I think Ms. Marshall has been very accommodating to work with you, and I hope that partnership continues to be collaborative. So,
Now, who would I address? I believe we got a clear legal challenge that will show that these indications are all right under the Act. To whom should we address those?
Go ahead, Mr. Loma, were you?
If that is part of your challenge, then I think that that's information you should present to Ms. Marshall.
All right, I just want to know who to send it to. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Well, let's move to
Learned a
our
lot today, didn't we?
third item on the agenda, and that is South Fulton IGA. So, Ms. Williams, would you like to talk us through this?
Yes, this is for a vacant District 7 seat to be placed on the November 8th ballot. And we had to present that to ensure we are within the 90-day requirement for them to call the election for that position.
To be placed on what?
November 8th ballot.
Oh, the November 8th ballot, okay.
This is for District 7. Okay. I make a motion to approve the South Fulton IGA.
I second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will move to have District 7 on the November 8th election.
Excuse
Okay.
me. I'm so sorry.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Up on the record.
Is there any reason for us to go into executive session for personnel or litigation matters?
No, ma'am.
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
So did he just tell us? I mean, I know that,
Right.
but they've always maintained that it's from, this list comes from the Secretary of State. No, they don't. That's like, no.